Good evening. My name is Jay Carpenter, founder of Desert Blockchain and Desert Blockchain Camps in Phoenix, Arizona. And tonight is our monthly session for Desert Blockchain. And I will stop the screen share. So if you're not familiar with Desert Blockchain, we are a community of about 2,500 members here in Phoenix, Arizona, the largest blockchain community in Arizona. And we have monthly sessions on the fourth Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. Arizona time. We talk about various topics in decentralization, blockchain, Web3, DWeb, so forth. And tonight we're going to be talking about architecture, decentralization, and opportunities. But in addition to that, we also have sessions in a facility similar to what you see in the image behind me, which is Desert Blockchain Camp. And on the second Saturday of the month, we have an open house here at 11 a.m. Arizona time, where we also talk about various topics, and we have projects where we work on the Internet of Things. We work on various blockchain constructs such as Stellar and stellar.org, that is, and non-fungible tokens, near field communications, and so forth. So I invite you to check us out on YouTube or Twitter. Twitter is the best way to keep up to date on what we're doing, but we're open to topics and we would love for you to chime in. So we are community supported, and we have a category of membership called Citizens, Desert Blockchain Citizens, which you can join on Patreon for $10 a month. You can get advanced copies or advanced links to the presentations, like tonight's presentation. You can get a Zoom link if you'd like to join live and be part of the live conversation, and other benefits as well. So, as well as join us on the Saturdays that are not open houses here at Desert Blockchain Camp at 27th Avenue and Georgia in Phoenix, Arizona. So, let me tell you a little bit of background on how tonight's session, the topic of architecture and decentralization and opportunities, got started. I was giving a presentation recently, and I would consider to be a historic and legendary figure in computer science and innovation was talking, and he said that initially he wanted to be an architect. And the question was posed to him is, what does architecture have to do with software development, and how did you make the leap from architecture to software development? And it was interesting. It was a timely question for me because I had recently been introduced to an architect by the name of Christopher Alexander, who unfortunately is no longer with us. We're going to talk about Professor Alexander's work in a little bit, but there is an interesting tie between architecture and software development, and patterns and things like that. So we're going to cover that tonight. But in addition to this sort of subtle but profound tie between architecture and software development, I assert, and I ask you to ask yourself this question as we're going through some of this material tonight: are we at a point where the decentralization, the digitization, the huge amount of media that we consume on our smartphones, on our big screen TVs, on our sound systems, all over the place, metaverse, augmented reality, virtual reality, all this stuff, are we outgrowing or moving away from the architecture and the structures that have developed since, I'm going to assert, the 1940s, and even prior, are we moving into a realm where our lives are so intertwined with digital media that our structures really no longer fit our needs? So for instance, these Zoom sessions, I've got basically like a mini television studio set up in my office at my home, and I'm trying to fabricate sound quality, lighting, digital connection, and so forth in order to do this session. I'm also trying to get the best internet connectivity possible to make this as high a quality session as possible. So the room that I'm in right now in my house was never designed for this. And that is the sessions that I see other people engaging in on Zoom and whatever your video conferencing application is, really are no longer a fit for purpose, in my view, environment for what is really becoming more and more important to all of us, basically across the globe. So how does that work with decentralization? Well, I think that decentralization, the decentralized web, is part and parcel with this digitization, digital media, and so forth that's occurring. With value creation, with non-fungible tokens, with metaverse, incorporating value and non-fungible token, all these things. And, I think that more and more, the decentralized web is going to be an important part of our lives, just like digital and social media is becoming a bigger and bigger part of our lives. So with that being said, we're going to go through a presentation tonight, and I'm going to talk about, some thoughts on this and ask you to think about it. How could the structures that we live in be more adapted to our digital lives? And, one of the points that I'll make is that right now, in my view, we are subservient to our digital media. So in other words, I'm sitting here in front of a laptop that's raised, so it's more of a direct level view of me. But in general, most people that you see have a laptop sitting on a table, they're hunched over it, they're looking at a camera, trying to, build their digital experience around this thing that's sitting on the table that really wasn't designed for video conferencing initially or so forth. In fact, the fellow that did the talk that's somewhat sparked this session was the first inventor of the laptop computer, Glenn Edens. So fascinating fellow, but you can look up his history and so forth. But he wanted to be an architect initially, and he got in early on the whole personal computer phenomenon and wave, and what sparked this entire explosion of what was Web 1, Web 2, and now we're experimenting with Web 3. So, the point being is that most of us, and many of you that are watching this, are twisting your bodies around, sitting in chairs and, looking down and consuming and interacting with digital media, where digital media is, we are subservient to the digital media. It should be the other way around, in my view. In my view, the digital media, if we had architecture that was designed and could accommodate the digital media that is an integral part of our lives now, the digital media should be subservient to us. I want to sit in a environment, in a space where I can look around and whatever I want to consume digitally, that's at my command. I want to point to it or, be with it, where it bends to me instead of me bending it to it. So that's one view. The other view is, we've heard a lot about the metaverse, right? And a lot of us have spent a lot of time on video conferences like this with Zoom during the lockdowns and the last 2.5 years, where we've, as a global community, we've had to radically modify our interactions with one another, our interactions with the outside world. And a lot of us have this medium that we're talking about right now is the way that we have connected via video conferencing, primarily Zoom. And I assert that, when you take that to the next level of the metaverse, that we're seeing a need to balance this digital media experience with the physical environment that we're living in and interacting with, and the people that we want to interact with, our loved ones and so forth. I think there's been a lot of anticipation and expectation that we are going to be able to put on some goggles or whatever and basically explore and be with a world that's pretty much zeros and ones. So those are some of the foundations. We've got legacy architecture was never designed for the digital lives that we lead now. And 2, we're in a period of exploration where we are trying to balance our digital lives with our physical lives, what works, what's satisfying as human beings, how can we live where we optimize the digital side with the human experience and the physical experience that we have an opportunity to really create and really see flourish. It's the best of both worlds. So that's the premise. Let me hop into the presentation. I'm looking to see if there's any comments in the chat. At this point, there are not. So I'm going to start my screen share and give you some examples. So if you are watching this on YouTube, please feel free to put your questions and comments in the chat section over to the right, which I am following. So let's move this down a little bit. Let's go into slideshow. And bear with me, my computer's a bit slow. It is loading. And as I mentioned, this is only the first of what I anticipate to be a multi-part series of this topic. So this is just basically the introduction. And I think this is, as I was putting this together, there was a ton of information that emerged and a ton of different directions that this could go in. So bear with us on this initial session to sort of open up the topic. And is loading. It'll be with us in a moment here. So, okay, so this is the title slide, Architecture, Decentralization, and Opportunity. Is it time for a decentralized approach to architecture? So on the left, you see a typical single-family home that, as I'll show you in a moment, primarily was created and became popular in the 1940s. On the right side, you see what is actually just an artist's rendering or image of a new space that's proposed for Burning Man 2023. And the space on the right, and I'll have a little more detail on what that actually looks like, is actually designed to be very short term, lasting the week of Burning Man, which I believe will be in late August, early September of 2023. And it's designed to burn. That will actually be set on fire and will be part of the whole Burning Man experience, which brings up sort of the temporal nature that decentralized architecture might be able to incorporate into the mix of creativity, functionality, fit for purpose, and so forth. So let's take a look at these two examples. So here is, this is actually a painting from the Smithsonian, and it has a soldier in the lower right-hand corner, but I thought it was a pretty good example of the type of house that we would find, something maybe we grew up in. Now, versions of this have evolved into a little bit more open floor plan and so forth, but basically the idea is pretty much the same. It's a single family house. It has walls that are fixed. It's, maybe was designed to have a television room, might not have even been color television. Just to give you an example, you can see the television antenna on the top of the house, and I assert that that television antenna, where it's at right now, that's really not incorporated into this architecture, even at that stage of the game. It was just sort of bolted onto the side of the house. So here is a Wikipedia article on tract housing. You can find out a little bit of the history of it, but it was designed to be economies of scale and basically emerged in about the 1940s, and pretty much is the model that most of our cities and urban environments follow today. Or if you look at apartment complexes, they're sort of like a compressed version of this single family housing, but none of it was really designed for a rich media environment, a media environment where the media is subservient to us versus us being subservient to the media. In general, even if you've got a television room, the viewers have to sit in front of it. You're kind of, as the term goes, glued to the TV, even if it's a big screen monitor with a surround sound and all that. But we have to craft our lives around the media instead of the media crafting itself and bending to our human comfort and how we would like to consume the media if we had a choice. So let's go to the next slide. And This, on the other hand, is a large depiction of this structure that's called Heart Temple that's proposed for Burning Man. And this is radically different. This could easily accommodate rich media. It's basically an open space shell that is a blending of the exterior or outdoor environment with the indoor environment, and it's designed to allow humans to freely walk around and be where they want, look in any direction, and basically have an experience like you see in the lower left-hand corner, where people are just sitting there kind of gazing up at the sky through the lattice work and interacting. You could easily imagine media being projected on screens, or flat panel displays being all over this particular space. So it's a radically different approach to architecture. And here is the article that came out on January the 11th, introducing the Heart Temple, and our Temple of the Heart, I guess, is the exact name of it. But it's an artistic piece, and it's designed to have volunteers help build it, enjoy it, and ultimately, in a week's time, reduce it to basically ashes. So this is just one example. This is not a particular highlight of this is the way things should be. It's just I'm using it to illustrate some certain dimensions of what I think is now possible. The other thing that's interesting is you can see in the depiction on the top side where the sunset is, all of this is being built on a level, basically, I believe it's a lake bed that's dry. So it's being constructed where there was nothing sitting there before this was built. And in a week's time, and I'm sure it takes more than a week to erect this, but it's reduced to ashes and basically nothing is left. So the part of that that's interesting versus the track house is, if you're talking about the infrastructure for a track house, you have all sorts of underground utilities, roads, water lines, electrical lines, and so forth. With the technology we have today, structures like this Temple of the Heart could be built pretty much anywhere on Earth, and assuming that certain adaptations were made, it could be built, used, and many of the services like electricity, water, internet connectivity, all of that is now being made available to us on a more decentralized basis, where we're no longer tethered to the fixed infrastructure that was required in the past. So this is the architect that I was mentioning at the beginning, and his name is Christopher Alexander. He was a professor of architecture, and he came up with some very radical views on architecture and patterns and space and software. In fact, this video is sometime in the 90s, where people in the San Jose, Silicon Valley area invited him to come and speak to them. In fact, they paid him what was then a pretty substantial fee to do that. And he starts off his talk by saying, hey, I don't know what anybody in this room does. I was invited here. I'm not sure why you invited me, but I'm going to talk about a few principles that I follow. And what this has uncovered for me is a very, very rich conversation around many things that embrace both architecture, physical spaces, as well as the software development and coding that many of us are involved with. So here is his Wikipedia page. And as you scroll through this, you can see that he influenced the development of agile software development. He's influenced the design of cities. He's influenced the design of buildings. And I am still new to his concepts, but from what I've seen so far and the people that, or the resources that have brought Christopher Alexander to my attention, I am discovering and sharing it with you during this session that there is a really rich connection between physical spaces, architectural design, collaboration, and patterns, and sort of the human side of all of us being with and optimizing these constructs that we now have available to us. So let you take a look at this. And this, by the way, this presentation will be available in the YouTube, is available in the YouTube notes below the video. And there is a link that will be available to the entire public starting tomorrow, January 26th. So this is another example of something in this realm. This is a famous book and thought process by a developer by the name of Eric Raymond, and he wrote a book called The Cathedral and the Bazaar, Musings on Linux and Open Source by Accidental Revolutionary. So by an accidental revolutionary. So I highly recommend you take a look at Eric Raymond's work, but he talks about this, he couches what's been happening in software, and for that matter now, DWeb and Web3 and so forth, in the comparison and contrast to the building of a cathedral, which is, takes a lot of planning, a lot of forethought, a lot of work, and a lot of time, versus a bazaar. And I'm talking about a marketplace, or I'll show you in a moment a souk, which is a marketplace like in the Middle East. So you could take a look at this, but this again is a fundamental paradigm where this is a cathedral that was built in, I believe, the 15th century, and you can see the amount of work and detail that went into this structure. And this was actually considered to be a somewhat revolutionary architectural design and structure. But, and I'm not saying that either one is right or wrong in terms of the cathedral being better or worse than the bazaar. I'm just saying they're at different ends of the scale in terms of, human experience, human interactivity, human building and design, and the process and all of that. So that's the cathedral. This is the souk. I believe this one is in Syria, but you can see this is much more temporal. It's much more dynamic in terms of shops can come and go. People can come and go. This is much more akin to open source software. It's much more akin to the decentralized web, which has a more dynamic, free-flowing nature that bends and shapes in a very temporal basis, where if some of these goods are not selling, they will disappear. And if some of them are selling, then you will see more goods like that occur in other shops in the marketplace here. So this is something a little more contemporary. This is a view of the Consumer Electronics Show 2023 that just occurred. But here is an example of more like a trade show environment. Again, you can see this is a very open space, has a very high ceiling, little to no fixed walls and structure. The media is very rich. People are walking around. The media is changing. It's much more dynamic than the tract home that we saw at the very beginning. And part of this inquiry into architecture, decentralization, and opportunity is, can we start to design and experiment with spaces and physical architecture, physical spaces, events, collaboration that is more akin to, let's say, this trade show than to the tract home that we were looking at the beginning. So that's pretty much it. This is my contact information, and this is a little bit about my background. You've got my LinkedIn link at the bottom there. So I'm going to stop the screen share, and we'll wrap it up a little bit early this session. I don't see any questions in the YouTube chat. So again, thank you for tuning in to watch this. I appreciate your time and attention, and join us again on the fourth Wednesday in February at 7 p.m. Arizona time. We'll announce in advance what the topic is, and if you have suggestions, please feel free to email me and reach out. But we're just scratching the surface on this particular topic in terms of many, many dimensions. And there is a body of work that I intend to present that further elaborates upon and expands upon this realm of how can our physical spaces be more adaptive, dynamic, and fit for purpose for the digital media that we're all weaving into our lives every day, and decentralization. So thank you very much for tuning in, and let me know your thoughts. Have a good evening.